All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The great Sharyl Attkisson joins us in a second, but we have a special message to DirecTV viewers. As you know, Newsmax TV shows are now moving to Channel 366, effective today. In fact, we're already airing this show and our full Newsmax lineup on JLTV, on DirecTV Channel 366. So we encourage you to tune in to that channel and watch us now on Channel 366. And joining me now is Sharyl Attkisson, Emmy Award-winning journalist, host of Full Measure with Sharyl Attkisson, and author of Stonewalled, which I think is kind of more relevant now than ever with what's going on in the media. Sharyl, thank you. I want to put up a tweet of yours because we like to put up tweets here. Let's put it up and we could all read it. A media observation, not an endorsement. Trump can't win, says the crowd who said Trump has zero chance of getting Republican nomination. You know, I got to tell you, what I am seeing in this media cycle, we're in a war. We're in a media war. For 3 days now, they're obsessing on Donald Trump saying that Obama started ISIS. And now today he said it's sarcasm, so that starts the cycle all over again when there are blockbusters on the Hillary side involving the Clinton Foundation and nobody cares.
There's definitely tilted news coverage. I can't imagine there's any objective observer that would think otherwise. And I'll tell you, I was in a room full of journalists in which one of them encouraged the others quite publicly to step up and do something because he said the outcome of this election was so important. And the other things he said led me to believe, and others I think to conclude, he was talking about journalists stepping outside of their role to make sure Donald Trump doesn't get elected, and he received applause for that. I think that's sort of this widespread prevailing opinion, and fine for the pundits to do that, but I feel like journalists are widely overstepping their role.
Yeah, well, okay, so you were somewhere where, I mean, obviously this was an organized event. Where were you? Could you tell us, and who said it?
It was an awards dinner for a group of journalists, and I can't remember which one of the Washington Awards dinners, but in the last few months. And he received, overwhelming applause, and I've heard this from others as well. And I'll tell you that a lot of my friends, ex-journalists and current journalists, when they do express opinions online, my Facebook friends, my Twitter friends, I think 100% of them who said so are vehemently anti-Trump, and I haven't seen any that are pro-Trump.
Right.
Whereas the public, as we know, is much more divided. It's just simply not represented on the news when you flip around and watch.
Again, do you know the name of this journalist who stood up and said that?
I don't. I believe he was a former bureau chief. I can't remember.
Okay.
Someone who was respected and someone of some influence in the room.
Okay. Now, anybody who would watch CNN, for instance, would not only think that Donald Trump shouldn't be president, but that he belongs in an insane asylum or behind bars or, and they've already set this up, Sharyl, that God forbid somebody does something stupid or tries to do something stupid to Hillary, God forbid, the way somebody tried to, one had a gun, tried to steal a cop's gun at a rally and wanted to shoot Trump, that Trump will be responsible. If something ever happens to Hillary, God forbid, Trump's responsible. And if something happened to Trump, he basically deserves it. I mean, that storyline has already been established by the left-wing media.
Well, I think the substitution game, if you play that, you would see that anything that's said by the one side, let's say Democrats call Trump dangerous and worse, no one thinks that's inciting any sort of violence or harm.
Right.
And yet if Trump says the equivalent thing, he's accused of inciting violence and harm.
Yeah.
It's definitely a double standard.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about some of the news that's just not really being talked about. First and foremost, we find out reportedly that the FBI, several FBI offices, saw some things going on that they didn't like in it with bank transfers, and they wanted the Justice Department to investigate the Clinton Foundation, and the Justice Department said no. I mean, that should be huge news.
Well, I think we finally reached a point where most people probably agree the government makes its own rules for convenience and exempts itself from laws and accountability to its own benefit, just like the corrupt societies that we've always tried not to emulate. I think, Republicans and Democrats alike have little faith anymore in the ability of government to act independently and to police itself and do the right thing. We've seen too many examples of where they're exempted from the kind of accountability that the public would be held to in instance after instance.
Yeah, so you're not really surprised then on the heels of the FBI saying no charges, the meeting on the plane with Bill Clinton and the Attorney General to find out that the FBI wanted an investigation into the Clinton Foundation, and Justice said no. That doesn't shock you?
Look, the DOJ investigates itself and the White House when it comes to IRS misdeeds and says nothing needs to be done. Who investigates Loretta Lynch for meeting with Clinton while Hillary's under investigation and possibly the Clinton Foundation? Nobody. Who investigates the DOJ when it doesn't respond properly to FOIA requests, Freedom of Information requests? Who holds federal agencies accountable when they mismanage records or provide false information to Congress? I think we've just seen time and time again that this is grown impossible. Even when independent IGs recommend action, federal agencies rebuff them and marginalize them. They just refuse to be held accountable. Yep,
absolutely. Let me ask you, before we get to your show, I know you're on hiatus, but I do want to talk about your great show and the exciting things that you're working on for the next season. But, also we find out through emails that a top donor to the Clinton Foundation tried to get a meeting by going through the Clinton Foundation people, went to the State Department with Hillary there, trying to set up this meeting for a huge donor with a criminal record, with an ambassador. And we find out that Cheryl Mills, the chief of staff for Hillary at State, flew to New York to interview someone for a top position at the Clinton Foundation. Again, this kind of stuff is indicting, and there's just, the media is yawning.
Well, when the prosecutor sees no possible nefarious action to anything that the alleged accused is doing, you're never going to really have a case to prosecute. And I think that's where we are now. Again, I'm fail to be surprised by it. I think it's unfortunate, but I fail to be surprised.
All right, so talk about your show, Full Measure with Sharyl Attkisson, and I know you're doing a lot of traveling. You're getting ready for the startup of the new season. I assume that's next month. What's going on?
Yep. Well, this week we'll be replaying our open border story about southern border, the porous borders, also about the Afghan building that we spent hundreds of millions of tax dollars on that was never needed, never wanted, and was never occupied. But for the future, we'll be debuting with a story on the cost of terror. I've been digging into the financial and social costs since 9/11, which are pretty enormous, but we'll have some information that I think people haven't thought about. And we're looking at some whistleblower stories. I've been interviewing whistleblowers around the nation for incredible stories of bravery for exposing taxpayer waste, fraud, and abuse, the terrible things that happened to some of them. We just got a full plate scheduled, and I think people will be really pleased with this fall. So we start season 2 on September 11th.
Great. Well, and I can't believe September 11th is 15 years.
I know.
That's incredible. Sharyl, always good to talk to you. Please come back often, and especially when the show starts up again, and we'll love talking to you.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
All right, take care. Sharyl Attkisson, ladies and gentlemen. Just really amazing stuff. She's an amazing woman. She's done just such amazing work with her. Her book is fantastic if you have not read it yet. All right. Last night, as you hopefully know, my colleague J.D. Hayworth, he had an opportunity to sit down with the man they're bashing throughout the media. You know him, you love him, Donald Trump. And Donald had a lot to say. And Donald was asked by J.D. about his Second Amendment comment regarding Hillary Clinton and how the media, and of course, the Democratic machine, which is really the media, as we've seen over and over and over, how they distorted it and how they blew it all out of proportion. And here is Donald's response.
Well, she knows it's not so. And in fact, I guess she said some pretty bad things over the years, but they know it's not so. What we're talking about very simply is the power of the people. We have such power because they believe in the Second Amendment, and there's such incredible voting strength, and that's what we talk about. And everybody knows that, and she knows that. But she's got all of her email scandals and all of the problems that they have, and they're trying to get out of them. They fully know it.
Reflecting on yesterday with the Second Amendment, do you wish you could take that back, or is the media making a mountain out of a molehill?
Well, I think it's already been reported that they're making a mountain out of a molehill, and people thought that actually it was handled very well. People were there. Rudy Giuliani today was all over the place saying he was there. He was actually in the room, and he was all over the place saying that that was really well said and perfectly said. You saw the reaction of the audience. They took it like, just a very normal statement. We're talking about the power of the voter, and that's what it is.
Polls can be all over the place. Right now, you're down in some key polls. The debates are coming up. Suspicion is that some of the Republicans on that organizing committee are not big fans of yours. Do you have veto power over the selection of moderators for those presidential debates?
Well, we're going to. Obviously, we want a moderator that's going to be fair, and if we have a fair moderator, that's going to be wonderful. I look forward to the debates. We've had very good luck in the debates before, as you know. In the previous, I actually participated in 11 debates, and it was terrific. I really enjoyed it. So I look forward to the debates, but we certainly want to negotiate certain things, moderator being one of them.